Audit rotation. What's interesting in the rules is that we were expecting that they would prescribe a class of companies. They've kept it a narrower class of companies. They've kept it fairly wide. So with the exception of small companies and one-man companies, audit rotation now applies to the entire universe of companies in this country, which is a huge change, not just for public listed companies, but for private companies as well. So that's one big thing. And secondly, there seems to be some confusion on whether it's retroactive or not, because we were given to understand that the 2 5-year terms in rotation with the 3-year cooling off period, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Would apply 3 years within the act coming into force. Now they're saying in the rules that we're also going to count the audit tenure up to the act coming into force. What does all of this mean?
Sure. I think we're trying to cover a lot.
In 30 seconds.
Absolutely. So, first of all, in terms of coverage, I think there are three aspects. One is coverage, second is in terms of what you stated, retroactive versus prospective, and third is whole gamut around appointment, whether it's 1 term versus a 5-year term. So, tenure protection.
Okay.
So, auditor rotation and tenure protection always works together in theory.
Right.
If you're going to rotate auditors every 5 years, you're going to give them a protection for 5 years as well. But I think
you can't take away the shareholders' right to be able to vote them out. So you need to provide for the fact that in every AGM, the shareholders get a right to ratify that appointment, if I can use the word.
Absolutely. At the
you
same
can't
time,
take away the right. You can't say, I'm giving you 5 years of guaranteed employment. Nobody gets that in any country, anywhere in the world.
So again, goes back to the principle, both have to work together. Why would an auditor invest energy, time, skills, money and developing skills to audit?
That's what you get paid to do.
But look at the type and the class of companies you're going to handle. So if I'm going to handle power-related companies, it takes time and efforts to invest.
Look, Yogesh, if
and
you do a good job,
skills.
there's no reason why any shareholder will vote you out. No company likes to change its auditor, having appointed it for 5 years in the middle of that term, because that reflects poorly on the company as well. It's going to raise eyebrows in the investing community. Nobody's going to do this frivolously. It's only going to happen if there are serious disagreements with the auditor, which sometimes can work against the auditor if the promoter and his team are, sort of opposed to the way you look at some issues.
So nobody is prohibiting companies to remove auditors before 5 years.
I thought you'd be more upset about the class of companies that
Absolutely, it's both ways. So what I was trying to explain, the principle of rotation and tenure protection working together.
Okay.
Act does not prohibit the company for not being able to remove the auditor before the term. So there is a provision for removal of auditor.
How can you prohibit a company from removing an auditor? What if there's something seriously wrong with the auditor? What if he's not doing his job correctly? I think Narayan agrees with me on all of these issues, right?
The logic of the yearly ratification is in case a disqualification creeps into an auditor in the interim. That's why each year he certifies that he is qualified, none of the disqualification is
and each year shareholders
are allowed to vote.
What are you worried about? In this country, companies have had auditors for 30 and 40 years, and shareholders have never stood up in an AGM and said, oh my gosh, this is 3 decades, let's vote this auditor out this year. It's never happened. It's hardly ever happened.
So let me try and explain. I think we're discussing two very, very different issues.
Okay.
One is regarding tenure, whether it's 1 year versus 5 year and a tenure protection. Section 140 clearly provides that auditors can be removed before their term gets over, provided there is a central government approval.
Right.
So if there are reasons, then you have a way to go for it. At the same time, now the auditors will be appointed for 5 years, subject to annual ratification by the members in every AGM. What does that mean? So auditors can also be removed at the end of 1 year, and we are going back to the past era where we had 1 year terms. So both are in conflict.
Okay.
Let's assume, if not ratified, what does it mean? Does it mean removal? No, the answer is not there. The Act does not state that. It simply says it needs to be ratified, that's all. So that's one part of the issue. Second, with respect to the coverage, covering every possible company, I think
that's worrisome.
So there's
so many companies are not equipped to do this. We don't have the depth in audit firms in this country to be able to do this either.
Or just think of the numbers: 8,000 listed and 13 lakh registered companies. So we are dealing with a range between 8,000 to 13 lakh companies who may be in between, subject to rotation within a period of 3 years, considering the third aspect of rotation, that it's going to be retroactive, because the rules provide that the past term spent by the auditor with the company is going to be counted for computing either the 5-year or the 10-year tenure.
So suppose you've been my auditor for 10 years, that means that if the Act comes into force today, then your term is already over. So within 3 years, I have to rotate out of you. Is that, I've understood that correctly?
Yes.
So I don't have another 10 years. I'm actually delighted with that, because I thought that they were going to allow you to do another 10 years. So 2 more terms of 5 each with the same auditor you've had for 30, 40 years, and then be forced to rotate out, which is perpetuating, a problem in that sense. So,
But the issue
Yogesh, I'm sorry, I disagree with you on this, but I'm happy.
which is coming up is it appropriate for rules to provide for this?
It should have been in the act.
Because absolutely, so independent directors, whether the term is prospective, is provided in the act specifically. Now rules, are they going beyond the law, is a point of discussion.
Yeah, fair enough. So I get the pain that you're suffering on both ends of this, though I may not fully agree with you principally. The third thing that you're going to be forced to do now is report fraud. Report material fraud and report it within 30 days to the central government if it is material in that sense. That puts on your shoulders a fairly big burden, and accompanying that is a fairly big liability, right?
Absolutely, and I think there are many variables to fraud reporting directly to central government. I think if you look at the definition and what the exact requirements are, auditors are supposed to report not only committed frauds, but frauds being committed. Now, it's not clear what you mean by frauds being committed. Fraud being committed could be at any stage of the fraud. It could be planning of the fraud. It could actually be the
If you
execution.
catch someone planning a fraud, you must report them to the central government within 30 days.
So the point is, now first of all, the principle is good, and it's an inspired principle from United States. Section 10A of Securities Exchange Act actually provides for exactly very similar type of requirements.
Okay.
But the difference is, and I really believe why those rules are sort of very important for us to understand, because there the reporting is to the audit committee, and in case the audit committee or the board fails to take action within particular number of days, then you go and report to central government.
Okay.
Just to take, and again, in terms of what frauds have to be reported, material frauds have to be reported, which includes frauds which are occurring frequently, or frauds which are exceeding a particular number.
5% of net profit or 2% of turnover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
frequency is also interesting. Like what? The same fraud 3 times a year, the same fraud
so I'll
once
give you
in
an
a quarter.
example. For example, let's say I've seen many BPO companies have frauds regularly reported with respect to misuse of ultimate client's data, or a credit card misuse, or let's say...
That's not an audit fraud, right? Would you call it a fraud that an auditor would have to report?
But during the course of the audit, you will get to see all of that. You will get to see a reporting being made by the company to the audit committee of the list of the fraud, or whatever actions which company has
You need
taken.
to then start typing out a letter to the central government.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need a permanent typist
And
computer.
please use that overnight courier, because it has to reach within 30 days, which is the other big limitation that you have
Absolutely.
to face.
There is one suggestion which could come out for the rule making is that the 30 period I find is very short,
It should
because
be.
by the time you come to a certain whether
So you
it is
don't have
5%
a problem
or
that he has to
2%.
second guess the fraud, that he has to check on frauds in the making. The bigger issue is 30 days.
At least the materiality concept has come today, so that it's not all frauds which an auditor has to, but at least if the period is enlarged, because sometimes it takes much more time to even ascertain what the quantum of fraud is. So 30-day period I think is quite short.